Two of my friends just had their wives walk out on them. They took the kids, all because my friends had their heads stuck to their phone and glued to their laptops, chasing another almighty dollar to impress someone on the internet that they didn't even know. And they chased more and they lost it. Hi, my name is Craig Ballantyne. I've been a business coach for over 18 years, and I've really been a marriage counselor along the way. And what I've discovered are the 5 C's of a great marriage. And I've also helped a client, just like my friends, who got divorced and was able to get back with his ex-wife and even have another kid, all because of the systems we put in place that should have helped my friends. Because here's the thing, they knew what to do. They had read my books, and yet for some reason, they just didn't do it. And now everything's a mess in their lives. And I just can't let that happen to anybody else. So again, I'm Craig Ballantyne. This is an Early Arrive radio show, and this is a very, very important message today. We're going to show you how to improve your marriage, how to strengthen it. Of course, I'm not an expert. All right, I've only been married for 2 years, and I was single for a long, long time. So I'm hardly the person to give you the best advice on marriage. But I had been a business coach for 18 years. I had helped people become millionaires. I have helped millionaires to sell their companies for $100 million, and I've helped keep a lot of marriages together. Those are probably my most favorite success stories, are when people strengthen their marriage through the coaching that we deliver. So let's get into just marriage in general. What I've seen, especially for entrepreneurs, is that when the marriage is strong, that when the partners in the marriage are a true partnership, that they are looking out for one another, that it's them two against the world, that is when the marriage and the business is most successful. I remember this one time I was at Fitness Business Summit with my good friend Bedros Keuilian. Bedros Keuilian put this event on, there's 750 personal trainers coming to see him. And it was me, Bedros, and Diana Keuilian, Bedros' wife, just hanging out in a hotel room at the Marriott Marquis. And I looked at them, and 750 people coming to your event, that caused a lot of stress. But I looked at them, and I looked at them looking at one another, and they just were like, you know what? It's me and you, Diana, against the world. That's what Bedros was thinking. And you know what? We're going to be okay because our partnership is strong. And when I was a single guy, that inspired me so much. And same with the marriages of our head coach in our program, Daniel Woodrum, who's our head coach at Early to Rise. He's been married to Brittany Woodrum now for 9 years. They have 2 kids, and the marriage they have is super strong. They're business partners, they're marriage partners, they're best friends. It's absolutely inspiring to watch. Another great couple are John and Catherine Gordon. They wrote a book called Relationship Grit, which is a pretty helpful book. But for a long time, even though they've been married for 25 years, they started off with a very rocky marriage. They got married young. John was a self-described dick. That's what he calls himself in the book, right? He was a jerk. And they almost messed it up, but they both fought for it. And it was incredibly powerful and really inspired the marriage of me and Michelle today. And through our reflection on what works, it comes down to these 5 C's. Because every marriage has its ups and downs, right? No marriage is going to be perfect. And even the rich and famous like Tom Brady are going to have marriage problems. But you can strengthen your marriage when you have these in place. There's one last thing I want to say before I jump into the 5 C's. Grant Cardone actually has some really, really great marriage advice that comes from one of his books on sales. And the book is called Sell or Be Sold, right? Every time that someone gets into a sales conversation or even an argument and making the sale, or you're selling them on your point of view in the argument, or you're being sold on their objection to your offer, right? Their excuse, or you're being sold on somebody else's side of the argument. And what I've seen in some of my clients' marriages is that the one who is most committed to the marriage and persuades the other person to get on board keeps that marriage together. I have a client who for so long has been trying to get his spouse to act healthy. And recently he sent me a message and said, I finally did it. And this has been going on for like 3 years. She finally quit drinking. She finally started exercising, and she's thanking me for staying strong. So it was sell or be sold. For a long time, she was trying to sell him on all the reasons why she couldn't get fit. And he was selling her on by living a very positive lifestyle. He wasn't pushing it in her face. He was living a positive lifestyle. He was having energy. He was feeling great. And she was falling back into old habits and not feeling great. And eventually she was sold by his persistence. So that's one last thing I want to say before we dive into those 5 C's. Sell or be sold, and understand that your wedding vows are the most serious contract that you will ever sign up for in life and in business. Your marriage vows are where you commit till death do us part, in sickness and in health, rich or poor. You either make those vows and you stick to them, or you were never serious in the first place. All right? So let's get into the 5 C's of marriage. Number 1 is core values. Core values. Most people don't even think about core values, but our family has core values that we operate on every single day. And because we operate on core values, which means we have values and vision that drive every decision. Values and vision that drive every decision in our life. Just like great businesses have core values that drive every decision in the business, right? You don't have to give an employee a 500-page handbook on how to operate in the business, how to make decisions, if there are strong core values that are communicated clearly from the CEO. And it's the same in the marriage. If the marriage has and the family has core values, then it's very easy to know when you're on the right path and to know when you need to correct yourself. So in the Ballantyne family, we have love. Love is our first core value. We love one another. We love other people. The next is family. Family first. For example, we do not spend nights away from home from our family. Even when I run mastermind meetings, they're in the same town, so I don't have to fly out because family comes first. Now, that might not be the same situation for your life. Remember, I worked for 48 years before I got married. Well, 40-some years, right? Before I got married. I got a different approach. I got a different perspective on things. But for us, that's what family means. The third one is honesty. Honesty all the time. Even when you don't want to talk about something, you don't say nothing is wrong. And this is something I had to work on. You just say, hey, listen, something's bothering me. We got to talk about it later. And then eventually you open up and we're honest all the time. Number 4 is responsibility, personal responsibility. I tell this all the time in my videos. Personal responsibility is the key. If it is to be, it's up to me. So we take personal responsibility in our family. And then finally, the last one is freedom and independent thinking. We don't go with the flow. We don't do what everybody else does just because people are doing it. We think independently and make the right decision for our family. With those core values, again, it keeps us on the straight line of success and we know when we're off track. The second C is communication. So we have our core values and we came up with them through communication. And we communicate consistently every single day. We have our morning walk. Michelle and I sit down for dinner. We have a lot of time together where we communicate on a daily basis. Then we have our quarterly planning and we have our annual planning and vision session that we do every American Thanksgiving. We do all of that, plus we have nightly talks about the baby, our schedule. We're just communicating very consistently, very openly, very often. Mostly because Michelle and I, not only do we love each other, I think this is what separates our marriage from some other people's marriage, is we really like each other. We spend so much time with one another. And we do it by choice, not because of a pandemic or something. Pandemic was actually at the start of our relationship and made us stronger because we realized we really like one another, and people who like one another communicate. The third one is consistency. I haven't mentioned this before, but we're consistent, not just in our communication, but in our habits, our dating mates. We're consistent in our time with our baby. We're consistent in time with our family. We're consistent and reliable and dependent with our habits. And having consistency is very, very important. And consistency is incredibly important for your children. I remember my parents, they had some flaws. They worked really hard, but they were consistent. I always knew I could count on them. I always knew where they would be. They were reliable. They were dependable. And even though there was a lot of other stress and strain in that marriage through my father's drinking, the consistency of knowing where they would be really, really helped me out. So consistency is very important in any relationship. Because if you're wildly erratic and you can't, or you or your partner is wildly erratic and you can't depend on one another, it causes a lot of stress and it builds up. Number 4 is connection. This is, I actually had 4 C's until Michelle and I sat down, she reviewed these and she said, no, you need more connection. You need intimacy time. You need to connect with hobbies. You need to have an interest in your partner and your spouse. Even if, for example, I've taken up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Even though Michelle doesn't do it, Michelle did some self-defense training with me. It was a lot of fun. She can really kick butt. but she's not doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, mostly because she's pregnant and part of it because she doesn't want to do it either. But she's interested in it. She has a connection with me about it. We talk at night after the baby goes to sleep, but while we're lying in bed, we make time for connection. We make time for that date night. That is where we have our connection. We make time for our trips with our family. And we make time, even within the day, to spend time together. Just before this filming, she had a little bit of a rough day. She needed a couple minutes. I took time out of my day, even right before the preparation for this filming, because I want to give her that time. And we had the connection. Finally, the fifth, I was able to give her the connection because of the fifth C, which is commitment. It goes back to those vows. We made serious vows on our wedding day to commit to our marriage for the long term. Now, I will say something, that when people get married young, when they don't have the experience in the world, when they're not emotionally mature, it's no surprise to me that some marriages do break down. Because when you're young, you make a lot of commitments that you don't take seriously. Michelle and I are older, been around the world, we've been in lots of relationships, and when we found one another, we knew that this was the one to commit to. You shouldn't have fourth, fifth, sixth marriages after the age of 35, because you should be wise enough to know what you should commit to. When you're a little bit younger, it's a little more difficult because people do grow in separate ways because they weren't wise enough to make the commitment. But when you do make that commitment, sticking to that commitment, understanding the importance of it will then help you through those tough times. So my friend John and Catherine Borden, they were committed to their marriage. So even though Johnson made some mistakes, with prioritizing time, they talk about this in their book. They're really, really open about it. He didn't commit to the marriage until he had been married for a few years, but he did commit. And when you commit to working it out, your marriage will stay strong. So the 5 C's are having core values for your family, having that communication, the consistency, the connection, even outside of your mutual interests, and then making sure that you have commitment. You must have full commitment to one another, to the institute of marriage. When you have those in place, you have a very, very strong foundation of marriage. Back to my friends. So before making this video this morning, I prayed for my friends. I prayed for my friends that my 2 male friends, I'm friends with one of the guys' wives. I prayed for my 2 buddies that they would become the most patient men. I've told them, spoken to them both, I told them, don't make promises. Don't apologize anymore. Your wife doesn't want to hear it. You've said you're sorry a million times. She doesn't want to hear it because you said you were sorry a million times before she walked out. And you made all these promises that you never kept to, you never committed to. And that's why your marriage fell apart. So don't make promises. Don't say you're sorry anymore. Just shut up and take it. You have to be the most patient person in the world when you're going through the counseling, when you're sitting there at the coffee shop and she's venting to you, and if you're able to arrange a meeting with her, you just have to sit there and listen. And you have to take that information in, understand her side of things, her perspective. Because so many men, they'll get in a situation where they'll promise the world to the woman when after they've taken them for granted and the woman has walked out, now they'll start promising the world. Well, listen, you can't promise the world now. You've had the entire world before and you let it slip away. Again, they knew what to do, but they didn't do it. And so why is that? I'll answer that question in a second. But first, let's go through a good story. My friend Marcus Martinez, I'm going to have him on the podcast very soon. He let me share this story. Okay, so he's given me approval to share this. He's the only person that his friends know who have gone through hell and come out the other side and gotten back together with his wife. So he made a mistake years ago and their marriage fell apart. And then he came to me for business coaching. And through the business coaching and through some changes in his life, what he decided to do was get more structure into his life. When he first got divorced, he decided to show up only to serve his ex-wife, only to serve the kids. He said, every engagement and interaction I'm going to have with them, I'm going to show up in a serving mode. Because this goes back to my other friends, right? They're making all these promises with words, but words don't matter. Only the actions matter at this point. Because the actions are what got you kicked out of the marriage. The only thing that's going to get you back in is acting like the man that she will get attracted to. That's the only way to get back in is action. Action out, action in. Words don't do anything. Words are like the icing on the cake, right? And it sounds good and all that sort of stuff. Sweet nothings. Well, that's great. Words are great when you have a good place in your marriage. But when you have a bad place in your marriage, words actually make things worse. It just makes them angrier with you because you've been saying all these words for a long time. So Marcus decided to show up. He decided to be a servant to the family. He decided to improve his environment and the people they spent time with. So he spent less time with the bad people and more time with good people. We started putting more structure and systems into his day, so he had better daily discipline, he had better habits, he had better systems in the business, so he didn't have to work so much. And over time, a long time, eventually his wife forgave him. They became friends again. And it was a couple of years after they got divorced that he started to see the possibility. She started to see the possibility. And eventually they started dating again. And from dating, they got married again. They had another child again. This is possible when you build the commitment, communication, consistency back into the foundation. Because here's the thing, there's so many people walking around with what we think are great marriages. Now, everybody thought, Tom Brady and Giselle, they're rich, they're famous, they're good looking, and their marriage fell apart. Probably because he said a whole bunch of stuff, his actions didn't match his words, and that will destroy the relationship. And that caused the betrayal in their wives' eyes. And then from there was no turning back in the existing marriage. Now, a new marriage, a new foundation has to be created, and it's going to take time. Marcus knew that. He knew that it was going to be a long haul. He said there was a lot of horrible days. He said there was a lot of days when he wanted to make promises, but she was ice cold, and he knew that it just wasn't going to happen. So back to my friends. The big lesson here for everybody is that we know what to do. We know what to do. You've heard it before. You got to communicate in your marriage. You got to commit. You got to be consistent. You got to have connection. Maybe you didn't hear about the core values part, but that's just part of the foundation. So we all know what to do. If we want to lose weight, we know what to do. Eat less of the junk, eat more protein, and exercise more. If we want to write a book, we know we have to set aside time to write. We have to do our research. We have to do our planning and preparation. If we want to grow a great business and make some sales, we have to push out marketing material. We have to generate leads. We have to get good at sales. We know what to do, but why don't we do it? And it's that lack of accountability. You must have accountability to somebody you deeply do not want to disappoint. When you have that, that is what will make you follow through in life. You won't become the best possible version of yourself until you have all of that in place. My friends knew what to do. They're great guys. They go to church. They're good fathers. They knew what to do in their marriage, and they let it slip away because nobody was holding their feet to the fire. And that's what every man needs, is a voice inside of their head, the accountability to help them make the right decisions when they are tempted to go down the path of least resistance. So there's a great quote from Epictetus, who's a Stoic philosopher, and I'm a big fan of it. He says, "Now is the time to get serious about living your ideals. How much longer can you afford to put off being who you really want to be? How much time can you put this off? Your nobler self cannot wait any longer." And so put that marriage 5 C's into place to help build the foundation. And then for every area in life in which you want to improve, make sure you have that accountability to somebody you deeply do not want to disappoint. And that, my friend, is what will help you move mountains in your life. For example, for Marcus, when he got the coaching, when he got the accountability to sticking to the plan, it was about a year after he started that then his wife finally gave him the possibility of getting back together. And so I'm not going to give up on my 2 friends. I'm about to go follow up on one of them right now. And I know that if they're just willing to be patient and they're willing to put their actions in front of their words, they have a chance of becoming the man that their wife was once attracted to before, because she can become attracted to them again. And that's what's going to happen. All right. So my friends, this is Craig Ballantyne from Early to Rise Radio. If you have comments and you're watching on YouTube, drop a comment down below with your #1 marriage tip. If you want to send it to me on Instagram, hit me up at Real Craig Ballantyne or email me at support@earlyrise.com. Listen, again, I'm not an expert at marriage. I'm not perfect at it. I've just seen a lot of things over the years. And now that I have some experience, I'm always looking to get better. So I can't wait to hear your marriage suggestions. We'll be back with another big topic. Stop.